Hello and welcome to our weekly Aussies Abroad news wrap, where we whip around the headlines and get you up to speed on Aussies doing amazing things around the world, as we welcome in Corey McKernan and big fella, another Aussie golfer's won on a significant tour around the world. That's 9 for the year now.
Yeah, Jace, we're having an amazing year. The guys and the girls are killing it overseas, but we'll have more of that later because it might be a precursor to our Aussie Abroad of the week.
Oh, that's called a tease in the industry. Well played by you. Now, coming up also in the show, our resident cycling expert, Matt Keenan, will get us up to date with everything that's happening in the Tour de France and our two Aussies there, Caleb Ewan and Richie Port, plus any other Aussie cycling news around the globe. We'll talk motorsport. We'll talk soccer, and there's plenty to talk about through Europe. We'll talk Aussies Abroad NFL news. There's some breaking news on an Australian in the NFL. We'll have a gander at what's good to have a look at this week, and Aussie getting a top job in the world of social media. All that and lots more. Let's get into it. It's our Aussies Abroad news wrap. We'll begin this week's news wrap with motorsport, and we'll start at Monza. It was an action-packed weekend at the Theatre of Speed, and we'll start with Formula One and Daniel Ricciardo. That track is well suited to teams that generate raw straight line speed, such as his Renault. He qualified 7th after messing up his hot lap in Q3. He got away to a fantastic start, though. Blew past Bottas and Verstappen in that first lap. Got himself up in a 5th position before all hell broke loose. Lewis Hamilton looked to be cruising to an easy victory, but he actually pitted when the pit lane was closed. He copped a penalty that moved him from the front to the back of the field, and from there on it was game on. Dan had to start from 10th when they red flagged the race after Leclerc crashed, and he worked his way up through the field, eventually finishing 6th. But I get the feeling that he'd probably see this as a bit of a missed opportunity in the end. Another good solid weekend by all means, but he's looked to have the speed to maybe get a top 3 or a top 5 finish. But certainly the Renaults the last few weeks, things looking up for them. Meanwhile, in the Formula 3 Championship at Monza, it was an electrifying weekend of racing. Aussie Oscar Piastri started 7 points off the championship lead, but managed to hit the front by Saturday night. He actually came from 15th to 3rd in a brilliant drive on Saturday. His championship rival, who's also his main teammate, Logan Sargeant, was taken out on the Saturday race, so he got no points at all. Oscar hit the front. There was a race on Sunday as well, but unfortunately, he worked his way up to 3rd, did Oscar. Sargeant was floundering back in the pack, but just as he was looking to extend his title lead, Oscar got taken out by the same driver that took out Logan Sargeant the day before. So Oscar devastated on the side of the road as his championship lead looked to vanish before his eyes. However, one last plot twist. Logan Sargeant, trying to get up into 2nd position, actually collided with their 3rd teammate. There's 3 in the team. So the 2 teammates came together. He got a puncture, so he didn't finish either. So we'll head to the finale of the championship next week in Mugello. 2 races to decide the championship. Oscar Piastri does still lead. It's going to be a fantastic weekend. It's all going to come down to that finale. You can see both those races live on KO and Fox Sports in Australia. They're on at a great time too, about 6 o'clock Eastern on a Saturday night and a Sunday night. Best of luck to Oscar Piastri as he tries to bring home the F3 World Championship to Australia. From 4 wheels to 2 wheels now, let's catch up with our Aussies Abroad resident cycling expert, Matt Keenan, who's been doing a superb job as always each and every night for SBS covering the Tour de France. Matty, great to see you.
Likewise, it's good to be in the Australian time zone, and this is the rest day, so I've had a good sleep in, done the mulching in the garden, and it's nearly 6 o'clock local time, so I'm about to get on the bike in the garage and go for a ride.
It's a very different Tour de France experience for you this year, isn't it?
Totally different. Normally on the rest day, we could be driving 500 kilometres. One time we had to drive 800 Ks on the rest day, so Melbourne to Sydney. And I don't classify that, Jason. I don't know about you, but I don't classify that as a rest day.
That doesn't sound too restful. Last time we spoke, we're a couple of stages into the race. We were hopeful that Caleb Ewan might have been in yellow early on. The cycling gods didn't see it that way, but he bounced back pretty well.
He did. His stage victory into Sisteron was one of the classics for Caleb Ewan. It had all of his hallmark traits about it. We didn't see him until he was in the front, and that was with about 10 metres to go. He slid up the inside against the barricade. It was a last-ditch lunge to the line, but he knew he'd won about 10 metres, 15 metres before he'd actually gotten in front. You could just see that confidence about him. It was a fantastic win by Caleb. He was disappointed, as you mentioned, that he didn't get the jersey on the first day, but he bounced back. And now for him, the rest day is really important because Tuesday, back out on the road, it's a flat stage. It will be a windy stage. He'll be one of the favourites again, but he's going to need a really strong team around him early on. The last kilometre, he can take care of himself. It's the 160 or so before that.
Yeah, just a minor detail they've got to get through. Richie Port, flying under the radar this year, but that could work to his advantage, couldn't it?
It could very well do. And I was of the view coming into this that Richie, let's hope that he doesn't worry too much about a high placing overall. He's achieved that before. He's finished in 5th place. Let's hope that he goes and targets a stage victory. He's targeting the overall standings. He's well inside the top 10. He's riding brilliantly. So what do I know, Jason? He is riding as well as he's ridden in the past, and he's finished in 5th place. There's only one Aussie who has done better than that. And of course, that's Cadel Evans, who's won the race overall. And Richie made it pretty clear before the race got underway, he wasn't going to ride around anonymously because he was about to become a father for the second time. And that happened about 48, 72 hours ago. And he had a baby girl, Eloise. And on that same day, he got caught out on a windy section, a flat piece of road, and he conceded 1 minute and 21 seconds to his other rivals. So he'd be a lot closer if not for a tactical mistake as opposed to a physical mistake. He's in really good shape. And I think that extra motivation from missing the birth of his daughter will inspire him in the mountains in this next phase.
Also interesting to see that he was suggesting this will be his last tour as a leader, and he's happy to become a super domestique down the track. Did that surprise you, or is that just the natural progression of where you think he's at as well?
It didn't surprise me because of what we've seen happen with Chris Froome. So Chris Froome has signed with a new team for next year, Israel Startup Nation team. And every rumour that I'm hearing is about getting the old band back together. And the lead singer is Chris Froome and the backup vocals is Richie Port. We used to refer to them as Froomey and Roomy because they always shared the room together. And if Richie Port doesn't end up on the team with Chris Froome and trying to support him, I'll be really surprised.
So for this stage of his career for Richie, why would he make that move?
Because he's 35 years of age and riding in support of Chris Froome is really good superannuation. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, they're really good friends. They are super, super close. And Richie's really selfless. And he will have had as much satisfaction out of helping Chris Froome win the tours when they were teammates as he's gotten out of his own victories. And he's won the Tour Down Under, he's won Paris-Nice, he's won most of the really important one-week races in the world. But I think when Richie reflects on his career, a lot of the things that he'll be proudest of are the stuff that don't necessarily show up in the results sheet with his name next to it, but with the results of Chris Froome next to them.
It's an amazingly selfless sport, cycling. It really is. Until you sort of get involved in it, you don't really fully appreciate just the sacrifice. How many events in the world, Matty, do you start that you'll race for 3 weeks and you know full well you're not going to win? That's not even the intention. It's amazing. Yeah, we always describe it, Jason, as a team sport where an individual wins. So when Cadel Evans won the Tour de France, there were 8 guys that we in Australia, we never talk about, but Cadel could not have won that tour without those 8 guys. They all sacrificed their own chances, whether it be for an individual stage victory or a stint in the King of the Mountains jersey, any little prize along the way. They put all that aside so Cadel could win. It is an individual sport, a team sport where individual wins. Speaking of teams, the Aussie team, Mitchelton Scott's had a great Tour de France so far. No Aussies riding in the team, but great to see an Aussie team doing so well. Yeah, they did really well for the first phase. They had 3 days with Adam Yates in the yellow jersey. And this was a team that said they weren't here to race for the yellow jersey. They were here to try and win stages. And now that they've had that stint in the yellow jersey, they can go hunting for the stage victories. I think Adam, he's now in 8th position overall. He needs to keep fighting, I think, and try and stay inside that top 10. Others like Esteban Chavez, who slipped down, he can go for stage wins. But their tour, no matter what happens from this point on, in my view, has been a success because that stint in yellow, it's the most distinctive and recognisable jersey in cycling. What are you expecting for this next week? I saw Richie Port describe the road to Paris this year could be something of a death march because just the lack of competition, the lack of physical fitness that the guys have had, it's been such an unusual build-up that it's really going to be a tough grind in the days leading up to Paris. Yeah, that is the unknown. It's the lack of the form guide, that lack of racing that Richie refers to. This next phase, so this is the easiest phase in some respects if you were just to ride the event, but they're racing the event, so that's very different. This gap between now and the next rest day, it's the shortest period in terms of the number of days, and it's the least amount of climbing, but it can be tricky. Tuesday's flat and windy, as we've already spoken about, but the Sunday, next Sunday, is really mountainous, then a rest day, and then 3 big days in the mountains. So a guy like Richie needs to get through this next portion of the race without losing time and conserving energy,
because it's, like a bank account. You can only spend so much money before you go into overdraft, and then eventually the bank comes and forecloses on you, and it's a stack of cards and it all falls down. So he has to ride boringly. He has to be boring. A good thing for Richie if he's boring for the next week, but, stays towards the front and keeps himself in contention. Guys like Caleb Ewan hunting for stage victories.
You can catch Matty each and every night on the SBS coverage. Not tonight, of course. It's a rest night and you'll go and enjoy yourself, Matty. Enjoy your night off, mate. Thanks for your time as always. We'll talk to you next week on Aussies Abroad.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jason.
To the World Game now, Corey, and it was a really exciting, a milestone weekend with dozens of Aussie women playing in the big leagues in Europe.
Well, it was, Jace. We had 8 Matildas that made their debut in the new FA Women's Super League. And Sam Kerr, well, she kicked it off. She scored her first goal of the season as Chelsea. They drew with my beloved Manchester United 1-1. Meanwhile, at Arsenal, we had Steph Catley and Caitlin Ford. They made their debut in an absolute 6-1 hiding of Reading. Steph started and she played 69 minutes in her first game since March, and she set up the Gunners' second goal while Caitlin then replaced her and provided an assist of her own. We move over to North London and we had Alana Kennedy made it a debut for Spurs in Spurs' 1-1 draw with West Ham, while Mackenzie Arnold was joined on the pitch by Emily Van Egmond in the 54th minute for the Hammers.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see 36 current and future Matildas playing club football now in Europe, which really augurs well for the World Cup coming up in Australia in a couple of years' time.
Certainly is, JC. I mean, with that much experience and getting exposure in the Premier League against the best, it can only help us at the World Cup.
Some exciting news too, also, Corey, on the men's side of the game with Harry Kewell, who we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, who's going to be coaching the League 2 Oldham Athletic team, actually picking up an Australian player. It's George Blackwood, the 23-year-old Sydney-sider. He signed with Oldham Athletic. He signed a 2-year deal. He's played with Adelaide United in the A-League. He's represented Australia at under 20 and under 23 level. And as we'll discuss in depth in our Aussies Abroad football special at Premiers this week, Corey, this is the knock-on effect of having Aussie managers that spread their wings and go and coach on the world stage, because what will end up happening is Aussie players will also get the opportunity to play abroad as a result of that.
Well, it's not only the opportunities, Jace, but yeah, just to have a fellow Aussie abroad that can show them the ropes, it can only help their performance overseas. It's
just a natural thing, as it happens in sports all over the world. The Aussie coaches are obviously familiar with the Aussie players. They watch them, they follow them. They have a great recruiting network back here in Australia, and they're comfortable bringing Australians over, often at a bargain price, someone who they know can impact their team and make a difference straight away. And further to that, Tony Popovic is officially signed as the coach of Greek second division club Xanthi, and he takes with him Zelko Kalak as his keeping coach and Arthur Dials, who's also worked with him previously. That club owned by Bill Pappas, who owns Sydney Olympic. So there are 4 Aussies involved in that club over in Greece as well. So every chance there's opportunities for Aussie players to get over there and play in the Greek league in the future. So join us this week if you're a fan of the World Game for our Aussies Abroad football special starring Socceroo Matt Ryan, who's the only Aussie to start this year's Men's Premier League season out on the pitch. Daniel Garb, our resident football expert, is going to talk us through Aussie men and women doing amazing things all around the world. Plus, he's got some fantastic little anecdotes of his own from his own personal Aussies Abroad journey. And we'll catch up with old friend Andrew Orsatti, who is the former SBS and ESPN soccer analyst, who these days has got a high-powered job at FIFPro, the Global Players Union. He talks to us about the challenges of Aussies playing around the world, the challenges of Aussie player development, and where to for the future of the women's game, which is blossoming right now. So you can get that on vodcast via our YouTube channel and aussiesabroad.tv. You can also get it wherever you listen to your favourite podcast. That's our Aussies Abroad football special coming this week. To NFL now, and some breaking news out of Detroit with Aussie punter Aaron Sipos cut by the Detroit Lions this week. He's been in a competition with American punter Jack Fox to get that one spot. And Corey, that's basically the way this process works. It's a cutthroat nature of the NFL. You come in, you compete for a job. If you don't get the job, you jump onto the merry-go-round, you head off to other clubs and try to land a gig somewhere else.
And Jace, that process, it never really ends. Right throughout the season, players can be cut at any time. You can have a job 1 minute, next minute you're injured or have a poor game. It's just endless. And look, as we saw probably a few years ago, I know Ben Graham, the year that he ended up in the Super Bowl, he basically played for 3 or 4 teams that year. So it just shows you the journey that these guys go on at the highs and lows.
Yeah, Ben actually, I think, got cut something like 4 times in the space of a couple of months. And a month later, he was playing in the Super Bowl. It just really did show the crazy roller coaster that is the world of NFL punting. We actually caught up with Aaron in Detroit a couple of weeks ago. He's fully prepared for this eventuality. Here's what he had to say.
I guess for me over these next few weeks as well, it's like it's not only is an opportunity to try and make the list as a Detroit Lion, but it's an opportunity to try and make a list on 31 other teams that potentially may need someone. So that's what the NFL is about too. It's not, once you miss out on the opportunity at one team, that's kind of it. You still may get an opportunity elsewhere, but that's why you just want to make every opportunity count wherever that may be.
And to celebrate the arrival of the new NFL season next week, we're going to have a special Aussies Abroad NFL special coming your way next week as a podcast and a vodcast. We're going to focus on Aussie stars, the up-and-coming prospects in college football, the cutthroat world of NFL, how it all works behind the scenes. Corey, it is a fascinating world. It's glitzy, it's glamorous, but it's also brutal.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I think for every success story out there, I think, for a lot of Australians out there to really know the backstory about what goes on, we'll hear from the guys who make it all happen.
Yeah, some fantastic guests lined up, both on and off the field, who can give us some great insights into the world of NFL through some Australian eyes. So don't miss that. That's coming up next week, our Aussies Abroad NFL special on vodcast and podcast. To golf now, and Corey, it's the final weekend of the race for the FedEx Cup. How are our 2 Aussies faring?
Yeah, not too bad, Jace. It still won't be too bad of a week for them because Cam Smith, he's 24th at the moment and Mark Leishman is 28th. Now, it's a bit of an unusual finish. Labor Day weekend in America. Now, if both the boys can hold those positions respectively, it's still not a bad week for them with Cam Smith at 24th. He'll take home $456,000 and Leish at 28th in the field of 30. Take home $415,000. So on the European Tour at the Andalusia Masters in Spain, Wade Ormsby was the best of the Aussies. He's finished tied for 31st. Over to the Sumitra Tour, which is the women's secondary US Tour, Robin Choi finished within 1 shot of her maiden US win, while Western Australia's Hira Naveed finished 6th, which brings me to my Aussies Abroad of the week. Now, Aussie Abroad of the week is Brett Druitt, who landed his first US professional victory over the weekend, where he took out the Lincoln Land Championship for his first Corn Ferry Tour title. He grew up in a pig farm in the township of Inverell in northern New South Wales. But in 2012, he was on a drive to Sydney with his coach and was involved in a head-on collision that almost claimed his life. He's been on a steady rise, and the 29-year-old has earned a tidy $108,000, and more importantly, he's jumped from 73rd to 18th in the points race for the PGA Tour cards.
Yeah, he's been on a steady rise, hasn't he? He last played regularly on the PGA Tour in 2017. He's one of just 6 players who have played in all 19 Corn Ferry Tour events. Of course, that's the secondary tour in the US this season. But Corey's only made 6 cuts and 2 top 10 finishes. They were way back in February, and he's had just 1 top 40 finish in the last 13 weeks. So it's been a really hard road for him, but it just sort of shows the mental strength and the resilience you've got to have to just keep grinding, because you never know when it's going to turn.
Yeah, you love to hear stories like that, Jace, where it sounds like it's been a big, tough grind. And I'm sure I did see him drinking a can of Bud Light, and it was well and truly deserved.
Yeah, he won on Father's Day back here in Australia, which is special for him. He's got an 18-month-old son, Brady, and he managed to jump on the line and FaceTime with Brady and his partner soon after his win. Well, each week here on the News Wrap, we bring you Have a Gander, which is something that's maybe a little bit left of field, an Aussie story that hasn't got the widespread recognition that we feel it deserves. And this week, we're going to delve into the big world of social media and an Aussie who's got the top job at one of the world's biggest social media juggernauts, TikTok. Congratulations to Australia's Vanessa Pappas, who has taken over as the interim CEO of TikTok worldwide. Now, Vanessa's been the GM of the US branch of the company since January of 2019. She previously led the Australia and New Zealand operations. And like every trailblazing Aussie around the world, Vanessa's success will open the door for future Aussies to follow. So we wish Vanessa and her team all the best for this exciting new chapter. Well, that's it for our Aussies Abroad news wrap. For all the latest news, scores, updates and profiles, you can follow us on social media and subscribe to us at our Aussies Abroad YouTube channel. And don't forget, this week, premiering our Aussies Abroad football special starring Matt Ryan, Daniel Gard and Andrew Orsatti. Head to aussiesabroad.tv for more.
Or you can listen in as a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favourite pod.
Thanks for your company this week. Good luck to all our Aussies doing amazing things around the world. And we'll catch you next time on Aussies Abroad.